Now to new tensions surrounding Wikileaks founder Julian Assange's asylum at the Ecuadorian embassy here in London. Guillermo Lasso, one of the two remaining candidates in Ecuador's presidential election, is vowing to end Assange's asylum if he wins that race. Assange tweeted on Wednesday about Ecuador's tough outgoing president, accusing Lasso of selling out his asylum to the US. Joining me now for an exclusive interview, Jennifer Robinson, member of the legal team for Julian Assange and Wikileaks. Jennifer, thanks for being here. Your legal headquarters are just around the corner from where we are now. So let me read you something that Wikileaks said about Julian Assange and the prospect of him going to the US. Wikileaks said, quote, "Assange faces life imprisonment or death in the United States." Is that really what you think would be the outcome if Julian Assange ended up in the US?
We are concerned about the nature of the restrictions that would be placed on him should he be returned to the United States. It's obviously a very serious investigation. We know that there is an ongoing grand jury investigation. We know that espionage is one of the allegations that's being investigated, and a whole raft of alleged computer crimes. We say, of course, that he has the protections of the First Amendment and that this investigation, this criminal investigation, places a great chill on public interest reporting. But as it stands, what we know of the grand jury, it is potentially a very long sentence should he be sent to the United States and convicted on the potential charges. There's
a limited amount that we know, though, about that investigation, isn't there? What you're saying, that it looks quite deeply at what is alleged in relation to Wikileaks and Julian Assange, that's not been made public, or do you think you know it for certain?
That's correct. We've had difficulties for the past 6 years since the grand jury was announced by the United States at the end of 2010. It's now nearly 6.5 years since that investigation started. We know that it involves espionage. We know from Australian diplomatic cables that it's of unprecedented size and scale. And we know as recent as just last year, because of court documents that were released, the US government is refusing freedom of information requests on the grounds that this is still ongoing. So we know very little, we have very little access to information, and the Department of Justice refused to give us any information or release anything. But what we do know is that it is incredibly serious, and it is the reason he has asylum in Ecuador.
That said, though, when Chelsea Manning had her sentence reduced, there was some expectation that Julian Assange would now walk out of the embassy, because he'd suggested that he might do that if she was granted clemency.
And he has continued to stand by that position. Our position is this: we put it to the Department of Justice, show your hand, tell us what this is, let's have a negotiation. We've been open to this for 6.5 years. Our US co-counsel has reached out on numerous occasions, and we've got nothing. So unless and until the Department of Justice comes forward with what exactly they have to have in mind, we're in no better position. So it's up to them.
It sounds, though, as if there's a possibility that his hand may be forced. He may be forced out of the embassy because of politics in Ecuador.
This is a great concern. Obviously,
are you getting ready for that possibility?
We are preparing potential legal remedies should the opposition come to power in Ecuador. But of course, he has been granted asylum by the Ecuadorian government. That government, it's a sovereign state of Ecuador. That it's a sovereign act of Ecuador to provide that international protection. And it shouldn't be playing politics with. You don't change asylum protection just because of a change of government. That is a grant of status which is relevant to his persecution, and that ought to remain the same irrespective of the government.
Do you feel his case is stronger or weaker now with President Trump than it was, say, a year ago with a President Obama?
Well, of course, we're hoping for a change in approach from the Trump administration. There are principled and legal reasons to take a different stance than the Obama administration did. This criminal investigation places a great chill on national security reporting and, in fact, breaches the new guidelines implemented by the Department of Justice about criminally investigating media organisations. We would expect that a new administration would take a different position, and we hope that they will do. But of course, we remain concerned while that grand jury investigation is ongoing.
Yeah.
That's why he has asylum. He needs to be protected from it, and we hope that Ecuador will stand by that protection.
We have a piece of sound of Julian Assange himself speaking and talking about these claims that Wikileaks was involved in a Russian intervention in the US elections. Let's take a listen to what Julian Assange himself said.
The line is that Wikileaks changed the result of the election. Okay, and as editor of Wikileaks, we're quite happy to have the credit for exposing the corruption and behaviour that was occurring in that Clinton team, and the DNC fixing things in relation to Bernie Sanders. We're quite happy to accept that.
Does him saying that, effectively saying that he's pleased with the result, and with the result of the emails that WikiLeaks released, and perhaps that having an influence on the US election itself, does that have an influence over his status, over his ability to be treated fairly, in your view, by the US government?
Well, look, I think the material that was published by WikiLeaks was clearly in the public interest. It is in the public interest for the electorate to know whether a candidate is saying one thing to big business and to banks and another to the electorate.
But also appeared to help the now President of the United States in his campaign.
I don't see how that should have any bearing on the legal position of WikiLeaks. And the legal right and wrong of the criminal investigation in the United States is the same, irrespective of any publication WikiLeaks has made. And this grand jury should be shut down.
But that's not necessarily how things really work, is it? I mean, does it help I mean, I guess it's back to the same question. Does it help that there's now a President Trump rather than a President Obama, in your view? Are you closer to getting what you want, I guess, for Julian Assange?
I think that there are political reasons and legal reasons why the Trump administration ought to take a different position to the Obama administration. It was completely contrary to free speech, the grand jury investigation. The persecution of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange ought to end. It was completely disproportionate, and we'd like to see that a new administration would take a new approach. It's
interesting now to see the president talking about anonymous sources, talking about leaks, complaining about those, which WikiLeaks advocates. I mean, the clue's in the name, right? WikiLeaks, you're in favour of leaks.
Well, WikiLeaks doesn't actually... WikiLeaks was set up to counter unnamed government sources leaking. So, of course, the government leaks when it suits them.
Right.
And often for political reasons. Right. WikiLeaks is, I think, a counter to the whole fake news narrative and to concerns about unnamed leaks, because WikiLeaks provides you the documents. They have a 100% record of verification. The materials are authentic. People can go and see for themselves exactly what the documents say. So we're not relying on unnamed leaks. You can go and see for yourself. And in the age of fake news, that makes WikiLeaks, I think, increasingly important.
But what the president is talking about, it appears, and we don't entirely know, but he seems to be using the term fake news to kind of describe spin, not just completely made up stories. And some people would say that that's what WikiLeaks perhaps inadvertently got involved in, that it ended up on one side rather than the other during the election campaign.
That's not spin. WikiLeaks publishes documents.
Right.
You can go and see the documents for yourself. That allows people to see through the spin and to see the information themselves from the source. In effect, WikiLeaks counters that problem. What
kind of conversations do you have inside the organisation about whether you are, if you like, being manipulated by a Russian source, for example, or a Russian-aided source to affect the elections?
As a lawyer who advises WikiLeaks externally,
Yeah.
I'm not privy to those conversations,
Right.
nor am I involved in the editorial process, except to say that WikiLeaks' editorial policy is that they publish what they receive, provided that they can verify that it's authentic. That is their policy, and irrespective of the material and irrespective of which political candidate it's about, they will publish. Now, the New York Times has also said that they would publish the same material. Had they received the Podesta leaks, they would have published them.
Yeah, but WikiLeaks never got anything about Donald Trump that was worth publishing.
They called for it, and as I've been informed by WikiLeaks,
Yeah.
they didn't get anything newsworthy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's, you know, it's a different world now, right? I mean, WikiLeaks many years ago appeared to be, if you like, on the side of the liberal establishment. Now it appears to be on the side of the Trump administration. What is the truth in all of that?
In actual fact, WikiLeaks has continued to do exactly what they've always done, which is to publish material in the public interest that they receive, irrespective of the politics of the situation. Having represented WikiLeaks for more than 6.5 years, I've seen them be the darling of the progressive press. At times when Fox News have called for Julian to be killed by drone strike. Now you have him being lauded by Fox News as a hero.
Right.
Now WikiLeaks is not doing anything different. They will continue to publish, and I have no doubt they will continue to publish material that will somehow cross conservative commentators, and again you'll see a blowback in the opposite direction, but they'll continue to do what they've always done.
How long can Julian Assange stay in the embassy? I mean, he can't. Is he in a very small room, isn't he, or just a few rooms? You can't live like that. It's been years now.
He's been in the embassy for more than 4.5 years in circumstances the UN have said amount to arbitrary detention. They have called upon the UK and Sweden to release him and pay him compensation for the arbitrary detention that he's suffered over this period. His health has deteriorated. It's obviously far from ideal, but given the difficult circumstances, I think he's doing incredibly well. But the situation has to end, and it is within the hands of the US administration to end that situation by closing the grand jury.
Bottom line, do you think this is going to end soon?
I certainly hope it will.
All right. Jennifer Robinson, thank you. Thank you very much for coming in and spending a Saturday with us,
You're very welcome.
with us here.